Hey guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you a comparison video today between two of the most popular thin synthetic lightweight soccer shoes currently out there on the market. One, the F50 adizero from Adidas, and two, the Mercurial Vapor 10 from Nike. Both of these shoes have a lot to offer when it comes to performance, and in today's video we're going to talk about what all those differences are when it comes to how these shoes fit, feel, and of course perform, hopefully making that decision that much easier if you are trying to decide between both of these two fantastic models. So with that being said, let's get right into the video. Before we get into a direct comparison between the Vapor 10 and the F50 adizero, I want to talk about the variations that are available as well as the alternatives that are available to both of these two models. Starting off with the Mercurial lineup, if you were considering the Mercurial Vapor 10, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to take a look at the Superfly 4 as well as the Veloce 2. The Vapor 10 is going to be the best Mercurial Vapor experience of the bunch and definitely the most traditional, but again, there are alternatives within this lineup. The alternate high-end model, which is of course the Mercurial Superfly 4 with a retail price of $275, is getting most of the attention this year for the new Mercurials that Nike has to offer. Features a one-piece mid-cut Flyknit upper, and in comparison to the Vapor 10 or all the other Mercurials within the lineup, it's pretty much completely different. If you guys want to see a comparison video between both of these two shoes, I'll leave an annotation on screen, but again, it's really difficult to compare both of these two shoes just because they're so different in terms of how they fit and of course how they feel. Now, if you were looking and kind of considering a more traditional Mercurial experience, again, the Vapor 10 is the way to go over the Superfly 4, but if you didn't necessarily want to spend the full $200 on that top-end model, you would definitely take a look at the Mercurial Veloce 2, which is the first takedown model, has a retail price of $130, so it's $70 less at retail in comparison to the Vapor 10, and it has pretty much all of the same features, minus the one-piece upper and minus ACC all conditions control. Other than that, it's the same sole plate, the same stud pattern, the same ultra-thin Tajin synthetic upper, the same support cage on the inside, and for the most part, a very similar high-quality fit as well. So again, if you're looking at the Vapor 10, it is the best of the best as far as traditional Mercurial experiences go, but the Superfly 4 is definitely worth taking a look at, and if you want to save yourself a bit of money and get equally as good performance, arguably, the Veloce 2 is also something to consider. As far as the F50 adizero is concerned, there are four variations of their top-end model. Starting with these two on the left, I have the messy colorway of the F50 adizero, and I have a standard colorway of the F50 adizero. The major difference here is that the standard colorways will feature a diagonal split on both the lateral and medial side, where the front portion of the shoe is hybrid touch synthetic, and the rear portion is made from speed foil, which is a slightly stiffer, lightweight, more rigid type of synthetic material. And then of course the messy colorway features hybrid touch all the way around with no transition point, no speed foil to be found anywhere. The major difference is mostly visual. You're not going to notice much of a difference at all when it comes to how these shoes fit, feel, and perform, the touch that they provide, the comfort level that they have to offer. The one thing that is worth noting between these two shoes is that there is a price difference. The standard colorways will cost a little bit less than the messy ones, but again, when it comes to performance, there really isn't much of a difference at all. As far as the alternate variation of the standard F50 is concerned, there is of course a leather upper variation available, which in my opinion is a lot less desirable than the synthetic model this time around. The amount of leather you get is fairly small and the quality of it is okay. It's certainly nothing spectacular. The majority of the shoe, as you guys can see, is this thin perforated synthetic. It does feel relatively cheap if you ask me. It's not what I would expect on a top end model. And again, if you were looking at the F50 adizero this year, the synthetic model is definitely the way to go. Or if you were considering something that is lightweight but still has a leather feel, this is an okay shoe, although I do think there are better options out there. If you guys want to see my direct comparison between the synthetic and leather F50, I'll leave an annotation to that video on screen, so be sure to go ahead and check that out. The final variation of the F50 adizero is of course the Crazy Light model. Now this is kind of a slimmed down, made to be as light as possible variation of the standard synthetic F50, and it definitely is lighter. It's overwhelmingly light, I would say. The lightest shoe currently out there on the market, And if that's really what you're going for, this is probably something to consider. Although when it comes to overall performance and especially responsiveness and traction, I would definitely pick a standard F50 over the Crazy Light model for reasons that are explained in my traction test video of the F50. I'll leave an annotation to that on screen so you can go ahead and check that out. So again, these are the 4 variations: 2 synthetic models, a leather variation, and a Crazy Light model. All have something to offer when it comes to performance, and all are definitely pretty good choices. But to me, if you're picking out of the bunch, the standard synthetic F50s are definitely the way to go. Starting off with the uppers, obviously both of these shoes are designed to be very lightweight and provide a premium barefoot feel for the ball, and you're definitely going to get that sensation from both of these 2 shoes. So in that regard, they are very similar. With that being said, the types of synthetic that are featured on the upper is actually quite different from each other, and they have a very distinct difference when it comes to the overall feel, which is what I'm going to try to describe for you. Now, starting off with the Vapor 10, this shoe features the latest iteration of Nike's Teijin synthetic upper, which has been featured on every single Mercurial Vapor since the Vapor 3. They seem to be perfecting it with every single new model, and I will say that this is by far the nicest variation of Teijin synthetic I've ever seen on a Mercurial model. It's ultra thin as it's ever been, extremely soft, and as thin and soft as it is, it doesn't lack responsiveness. They've incorporated a fused-on support cage on the inside of the shoe. You can very faintly see some of those support cage elements on the outside just because of how thin it actually is. And if you're looking for that no extra padding, truly barefoot sensation on the ball, the Mercurial Vapor 10 is, in my opinion, the best option currently out there on the market. Arguably the most unique aspect of this shoe, though, is the one-piece design of the upper. You can see it's completely seamless as the upper flows directly across the top of your foot, no tongue whatsoever. Because of that, there are no overlapping materials, so you get a very uniform touch across the entire foot. No matter which part of the foot you're using to touch the ball, the feel is exactly the same and ultra thin. So for that reason, I really like the Vapor 10. It's arguably the most unique Vapor model Nike has ever put out, and in terms of the touch that it provides, it's thin all over, which is really all you can ask for. Other small elements about this shoe is, of course, the micro texturing on the outside of the upper. Hopefully you guys can get a look at it in the video. It's very subtle. It has a matte finish for the most part, but the texturing does provide a little bit of additional grip on the ball, nothing too extreme. And then, of course, you get all conditions control, Nike's wet control element, also known as ACC, which is what all conditions control stands for. And that is featured across the upper, acting as, like I said, your wet control element. And for the most part, in wet weather playing environments, the grip you get on the ball is actually quite surprising with this particular shoe, especially in comparison to other thin synthetic models out there on the market. So again, if you're looking for the ultimate, no extra padding whatsoever barefoot sensation on the ball, the Vapor 10 is honestly the best of the best. Now with the F50 adizero, again, it's pretty much a one-piece synthetic upper, obviously with a tongue design with the laces running through the middle of the shoe. This is their hybrid touch synthetic. And it's the nicest variation of hybrid touch I think that you can get on any model right now. It's very thin, it's extremely soft and flexible, almost leather-like in terms of how it feels. And what I like about this synthetic is, yes, it's very thin, but there's a slightly padded element about it where, to me, it almost feels like an ultra thin leather material, if that makes any sense. So it's very thin, it definitely does provide that barefoot sensation, but it doesn't lack that slight amount of cushion when making contact with the ball, which is part of the reason why I prefer the feel of this upper over the barefoot feel that you get from the Vapor 10. Now, of course, your opinion might differ from mine, but for that reason alone, I really like the overall feel of the F50 adizero versus what you get with the Vapor 10. Other than that, though, it's one piece all the way across, so you get a pretty uniform touch. Obviously, there are overlapping materials because of the traditional construction, but that's not something that's really going to bother you too much, unless you've worn the Vapor 10 before, I suppose. But overall, very nice, very thin. It does have a synthetic leather grain finish on the outside, and that's going to go for every single colorway. This one obviously has a little bit of a unique finish, but there's really no extra grip on the outside of the upper whatsoever. It's pretty smooth, pretty slick against the ball. And again, the touch that it provides, it's very premium, very much along the lines of a barefoot feel shoe. But again, if you want to compare these two shoes directly, this one's thin with a little bit of extra padding, whereas the Vapor 10 is ultra thin with no extra padding whatsoever. As far as traction is concerned, both the F50 and the Vapor 10 are very, very strong performers. Now, when it comes to the sole plates, obviously the F50 features a sprint frame construction where it's a one-piece plastic sole plate and heel counter. The sole plate is thin, it's flexible, but in comparison with the Vapor 10, you're getting their brand new compressed nylon layout, which again is a very, very thin sole plate base, keeping you very close to the ground and stable, as you'd get from the sprint frame on the F50. It's also very lightweight, and in comparison, feels a little bit more flexible from right out of the box, but once broken in, they're both flexible sole plates, especially considering how light they are, which to me is definitely a good thing. As far as traction and stud patterns are concerned, these two shoes are fairly different, but both very, very good. The Vapor 10 offers their latest Mercurial variation for 2014. It's a little bit less aggressive than what we got from the Vapor 9 as well as the Vapor 8, now featuring 4 studs in the heel as opposed to 2, but because of the slight decrease in aggressive traction and the increase in stability, I would say it's a nice improvement overall, and it's going to be better suited for a wider variety of firm natural grass playing surfaces. In terms of the overall performance, if you're looking for outright grip when pushing off in pretty much any direction, quick cuts, lateral changes of direction, this is a stud pattern that performs extremely well. It's one of the best on the market when it comes to that type of movement. So again, if you have worn Mercurials in the past, you've been impressed with the traction that they have to offer, you're still going to be impressed with the Vapor 10. And again, in terms of multi-directional traction, this is one of the best stud patterns currently out there on the market. With the F50 adizero, you're getting a variation of what we've gotten on the F50 since it first came out in 2010. This is the first major change up they've made. It features triangular studs in the forefoot, but they're a little bit more bladed in shape, as you guys can see, and then they maintain those same triangular studs in the heel as well, offering some pretty good stability. The forefoot studs are pretty good when it comes to multi-directional traction. I wouldn't say they dig in and are quite as aggressive feeling as what you get from the Vapor 10, but overall traction certainly did not let me down with this particular model, and in comparison I would say you have slightly more freedom to twist, pivot, and turn when your foot is planted in the F50 versus what you get from the Vapor 10. So that is kind of the major distinction. This one feels a little bit more traditional, whereas the Vapor 10 is going to be a little bit more aggressive. Both perform great. I really have no kind of preference over the two. And overall, if traction is a concern, it shouldn't be the major distinction, the major kind of tipping point between both of these two shoes, as they're both really good when it comes to overall performance. As far as weight is concerned, the Vapor 10 and the F50 adizero both fall into the ultra lightweight category. So I'm going to weigh both pairs for you today in real time just so we can see what the exact differences are. We'll start off with the Vapor 10. You can see this is a brand new pair in a size 9 US. We're going to throw it on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at 6.25 ounces, down about half an ounce from the previous model, which is of course the Vapor 9. And overall, it's just a nice lightweight shoe, very similar in weight to that of the F50. So we'll take that off the scale, we'll throw on the F50 adizero, again brand new condition, size 9 US, and you can see that these guys weigh in at 5.75 ounces, so a little bit more than half an ounce less than what you're going to get from the Vapor 10. Is this a significant amount of weight? Honestly, no. I think you could notice a slight difference with one shoe in one hand and the other in the other hand, but when they're on your feet, it's very, very difficult to tell a weight difference between the two shoes. The major distinction that I would make between the F50 and the Vapor 10 when it comes to weight and the overall feel that they have to offer is that the F50 adizero is very light but feels natural, whereas the Vapor 10 is equally as light but much more structured on your foot. It has a tighter fit, it's a little bit more responsive, it wraps it a little bit more closely, where again, you kind of have contrasting sensations here. If you want something that's a little bit more structured, the Vapor 10's lightweight feel might be a little bit more appealing to you, whereas if you want something that is super light but also extremely comfortable, soft, and flexible, then the F50 adizero might be more appealing to you. So again, it's down to personal preference, but when it comes to just crunching the numbers, the weight difference between the Vapor 10 and F50 adizero is so minimal that it really shouldn't be the deciding factor if you're trying to choose between both of these two shoes. Alright, here's a look at the Vapor 10s as well as the F50 adizeros on feet. And in terms of comfort from right out of the box, these are both very, very comfortable shoes. Again, the major difference here is that the Vapor 10 feels a little bit more structured, it's tighter to your foot, whereas the F50 adizero just to me feels a little bit more natural. The upper is arguably slightly softer as well as a little bit more flexible. Because of that slight cushion it has, again, it has kind of a leather-like quality about it, whereas the Vapor 10 is kind of just a true ultra thin barefoot sensation on your foot, a second skin, if you will. So again, that is kind of the major distinction in terms of how these things fit and feel on your feet. Both are very comfortable, but in terms of fit, like I said, the F50 adizero is a little bit more natural. It has a little bit of extra width to it, and the Hybrid Touch Synthetic actually does have the slight ability to stretch. So if they're a little bit snug from right out of the box, give them some wear time and they will break in very, very nicely. But even so, it's still not the widest shoe around. So if you do have really, really wide feet, it's probably best to look elsewhere with both of these two models. In terms of the fit of the Mercurial, as you'd expect from a pair of Vapors, they have a tight kind of narrower cut to it overall. With this new one-piece design, it certainly isn't as narrow as you might expect. It actually is good for a decent amount of width. As long as you don't have really wide feet, these should fit you quite well. I have about average width feet, and I would say that I'm almost at the max of what this shoe can handle. But overall, it's a nice tight fit and still very, very comfortable. For me, the most comfortable Mercurial Vapors that Nike has ever put out. But again, in comparison, you're not going to really get much stretch out of the upper, and the way they fit from right out of the box is the way they're going to fit for their entire lifespan. So overall, to sum things up, if you have really wide feet, it's probably best to stay away from this style of soccer shoe altogether. In terms of sizing, both of these shoes that I'm wearing are a size 9 US, and the fit and length is absolutely perfect. So whether you're looking at the Vapor 10 or the F50 adizero, I would strongly recommend going true to size for the best possible fit. Alright guys, that's it for my comparison between the Adidas F50 adizero and the Mercurial Vapor 10 from Nike. Both are absolutely fantastic shoes, both great performers, and they both really do have a lot to offer when it comes to providing a truly premium, ultra lightweight barefoot feel for the ball. If I had to pick my favorite of the two, I'm a big fan of both of these two shoes. While this is not necessarily my style of shoe that I like to wear personally, I think that if I had to pick of the two, it would be the F50 adizero, simply because I prefer the more natural feel that it has to offer and the slight amount of cushion that you get from the ultra thin Hybrid Touch Synthetic upper. That's not to take away anything from the Vapor 10. If you've been a fan of the Mercurial series for a long time, I really do feel like the Vapor 10 is the best Vapor that Nike has ever put out. But again, they're both great options. You can't go wrong either way. It's just a matter of preference and what you like personally from your soccer shoes. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you want more information on either of these two models, I'll leave several annotations on screen to my playtest videos for both the F50 and the Vapor 10 if you want to see the shoes in action. And linked down below in the description, you will find the review pages for both of these two shoes, where you'll find my full written review, high quality images so you can get a better idea as to how they actually do look in person, as well as buy it now links with the best prices online, including exclusive SR4U coupon codes allowing you to pick up both of these models below their respective retail prices. So be sure to check those out if you are interested in more info. Those links are again down below in the description. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. That would be greatly appreciated. If you have any questions at all or suggestions, leave those down below in the comment section. I definitely will get an answer out to you. Subscribe, of course, if you haven't already, for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, thanks for watching.